Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last part of the phase 4 of the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association free webinar series. And this morning, we will be having this topic, counseling interventions in the management of mental health issues. Together with us, or our resource person is Dr. Josie B. Banaglorioso of the InTouch Community Services. But before we proceed with our discussion this morning, I would like to invite everyone. We will have a moment of silence before we start this webinar. So in our silence, let's do the inhaling and exhaling. So we inhale, slowly exhale, inhale, slowly exhale, inhale, slowly exhale. As we inhale, let's think of the goodness, of the blessings, and as we exhale, we release our worries, our fears, anxieties. And in our silence, we thank our personal God for this wonderful day. Okay, good morning once again. This is Francis Ray Subong, the Press Relations Officer of the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association, and together with us in our Zoom speaker. Sound check. My apologies. Nawala tayo. Right now, we are experiencing a technical difficulty and, of course, a power interruption here in Iloilo City. My apologies for that. Okay. Uh, again, we are joined by our board members, um, Dr. Carmen Pabiton and Dr. Morada. Okay. So while waiting, because we were, yes, okay. Now, before we start this webinar, for those who are new to this webinar, I would like to introduce first the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association. Okay. So the PGCA, so we have this free webinar series because it's our commitment to all the guidance counselors and other helping professionals to promote mental health and social responsibility. And of course, aside from that, we need to educate our general public regarding the helping profession. Okay, so the PGCA is the Accredited Integrated Professional Organization, or the AAP IPO of the Professional Regulations Commission for Guidance and Counseling, as well as we are one of the PRC accredited continuing professional education provider. Okay, and the PGCA was known before as the Philippine Guidance and Personal Association Incorporated. Now, the vision of the PGCA, okay, sound check. May I, uh, again, may I ask our viewers, can you hear me now? Sound check.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
I can hear
thank you
you,
so much.
Ray.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc Ellen, Doc Carmen. Okay, now the PGCA, the vision of the PGCA is to become the premier a Philippine professional organization of counselors with international recognition. And our mission, we commit to be in the forefront in the development of counselors who are professional, goal-driven, committed advocates, and responsive to the needs of their clientele in the promotion of their well-being to make them proactive contributors in the pursuit of a just and humane society. Now, um, a little of history po ng PGCA. So in 1964, uh, the late Father Jaime Bulatao, one of the institutions when it comes to psychology and guidance in the Philippines, together with now Archbishop Emeritus of Cagayan de Oro, Antonio Ledesma, both Jesuits from Ateneo, come up with this idea of a professional organization of guidance workers, and they presented it to Dr. Esperanza Limcaco of UP. After that, there are a number of professionals gathered, so in response to this call, and they joined together, and most of those who joined this group are guidance counselors, guidance educators, and guidance supervisors. Now, with aligning or fulfilling our mission to become a premier professional organization with international recognition, so in April 1981, PGCA became a member of the Western region of the American Counseling Association, and it's the only counseling organization in Asia that is given the privilege by the U.S. National Counseling Association. And of course, not resting in our laurels, in 2018, PGCA further forged partnerships with the Australian Counseling Association and the Association of Psychotherapists and Counselors Singapore, or APACS. And as uh, as of the moment, we are trying to establish more international partnerships and recognition, and hopefully we can have more mutual recognition agreements in the coming years. And of course, ito po yung aming activities ng PGCA. So we have the annual convention and major convention, but as of now, we have to postpone it indefinitely because of the pandemic that we are experiencing right now. Usually, we are holding the annual convention every May, and our major convention either in Luzon or Visayas and Mindanao every October. And of course, we have continued professional education programs just like this one. Please take note po sa ating mga professionals who are with us. There is a corresponding CPD points for this free webinar. So yung in-applyan po natin, of course, guidance counselors, psychologists, psychometricians, teachers, and of course, social workers. We have also research and publication. Right now, we are trying to publish at least twice a year, no, the PGCA research journal. However, as of now, once a year lang po tayo nag-publish. And of course, the social responsibility and partnerships. Oh, it is noteworthy that we are partnering with the National Center for Mental Health when it comes to the provision of free tele-mental health sa ating mga kababayan na apektado po ng COVID-19. We have also a partnership with the Unilab Foundation And of course, we're trying to establish more partnerships with government agencies with other non-government organizations. As the accredited integrated professional organization, under po sa umbrella ng PGCA are the other national counseling associations. So we have the PACERS, or the Philippine Association of Counselor Education, Research, and Supervision. We have also under the umbrella of PGCA is the IPCAP, or the Integrated Professional Counselors Association of the Philippines. We have the School Counselor Circle. We have the IOTA Phi, the CDAP, or the Career Development Association of the Philippines, APECA, and of course the Federation of Career Guidance Network Association of the Philippines. Now, I'm flashing right now the current board of directors of the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association, led by Dr. Adelaida C. Hines, our president, and of course our vice president, Mr. Christopher P. Hernandez. You can join us, you can engage us with our different social media accounts. So we have our Facebook, PGCA Official. We have also our Twitter account, Official PGCA. And right now we are streamed live via YouTube sa ating PGCA Philippine Counselor. So before we start, another friendly reminder: if you have concerns po regarding our certificates, please email pgcacertificate@gmail.com. Again, you can get the certificate if you were able to answer our post-test and evaluation. So kung nakapag-attend ka lang and you were not able to answer our post-test and evaluation, well, you can get a certificate. But again, if you have concerns, you have answered the post-test, better you have to screenshot it, and you can send it po sa ating pgcacertificate@gmail.com so that ang ating mga volunteers and in charge po can send you your certificates. Please take note po, we are sending thousands of certificates. So please bear with us. Our sincerest apologies for those na hindi pa nakakatanggap. Okay? But mind you, we are trying to do our best to send the e-certificates and handouts po sa inyo, because this is our commitment to the general public. So at this time, let us welcome po Dr. Josie B. Managlorioso, a guidance counselor and registered psychologist. She is consultant po ng InTouch Community Services. Magkasama po sila ni Dr. Julian Montano, one of our board of directors sa PGCA. Okay, now let us give a warm virtual welcome sa ating pong speaker, Dr. Josie B. Managlorioso. Doc Josie, I will stop sharing my screen. Then you can share po your screen.
Yes, thank you. Okay, sige. Let me just put this on hold for a while. Okay, I'll just share my screen. And magandang umaga sa ating lahat, no? Sa kakaibang challenge na panahon, or kakaibang panahon with a different challenge, no? Okay. This is Zoom. Okay, I need to share screen. Okay, share screen. Can you the host disabled the attendee screen sharing. So can you accept me or make me a co-host?
Okay, my apologies,
so
Doc Josie. Yeah, you are now a co-host. Okay, may apologies. Naputol kasi tayo kanina. Yes.
That's fine. Thank you. Okay, I hope, okay, I can share my screen, no? Desktop. Okay, it's my desktop. And my PowerPoint. Bakit wala yung PowerPoint? Oh, wala. Oh no. Am I still here?
Yes, yes. Yes, Doc Josie.
Okay. It's asking
Ayan.
me to leave or what? Okay, can you see my screen already?
Yeah, you just click the cancel that one. Yes, sa may leave meeting.
Cancel.
Yeah,
Okay,
cancel.
okay. So can you see the screen?
The PowerPoint, yeah, you need to yan, ayan. Yes. Okay, sige. Let's wait for
Slideshow.
the
There.
full screen.
There.
Ayan, yes, Doc Josie. Okay, go
Great.
ahead.
Salamat. Sige, sige. So magandang umaga, no, sa kakaibang panahon with a different challenge also, no. I think yeah, as a psychologist and at the same time as a counselor, this has been a challenging time also for me, both personal and slightly on the professional. I realized I can make accommodations or make adjustments rather with ang tawag nito, no, with the professional aspect. Pero alam mo, by the way, do we have foreigners on board or can I speak in Tagalog? Or, uh, hi, can I
Uh,
speak in Tagalog? Or
Siguro a mixture, Doc Josie, because last webinar actually we have
foreigners on board?
yeah, foreigners na attendees. Siguro it's
Sure,
more, yeah.
sure. Okay. So I think for us, no, I think if you're used to certain ways, and I think for me, the work is my passion and my life revolves around my work. So now, part of the challenge is I'm forced to stay home, and probably the problems and challenges in the home that I'm running away from and resorting to work, okay, as is already is kumbaga has been haunting me, no? And I think it's about time we need to face. So when I was crafting this presentation, I was also keeping in mind the personal journey and the challenges that I had to go through given this pandemic, no? So one of the important things I learned in being a counselor or in the helping profession is to use the self, no? Ourselves are tools, okay? Is a main tool. So yung the personality of the counselor is critical. So it's not only a matter of being able to, ask the right question or paraphrase what the client has said. I think it's important to have certain attitude, because if you don't have those attitude, chances are, it can affect and influence the kind of questions you will have. Okay, so that's the most important key takeaway for me as I'm making this presentation, no? And I'd like to share that to you. Okay, so yes. Okay. So we'll be talking about mental health. And I think this is the most important, uh, not the most, no, but one of the important, because we need also physical health at the moment, right? Because we're facing a physical condition, no, a virus, which has a direct impact on our physical well-being. And I think some of us got surprised when already it has impacted the mental health, no? Now, and in fact, I have some people, they don't like to talk about mental health because, there's always that stigma attached to mental health, right? They like to coin it in such a way that it's more neutral, like mental well-being, or some people get even sensitive with the word mental, no? Okay, so whatever it is, we want to establish a healthy self, okay, both physical and mental. So, but let's just look at the definition of World Health first, no? Of what does it mean to be mentally healthy, right? Okay, so the first attribute or the first pillar is that you're able to use your potentials, right? If you have potentials, you're able to use them or develop them accordingly, no? So I think that's one, because I think potentials are important. Like these are the buffers, no? Especially when you're already get overwhelmed with so much stressors and challenges, you can always go. This is one area that you can always go back to. And the strengths finder, okay, that concept okay, or that philosophy, is the more you utilize or the more you use your potentials and your virtues, the better for you, no? In terms of positive well-being, mental health, and likewise with impact the physical health. So, okay. And then, of course, the second criteria, which I think is very important and relevant these days, no? That you're able to survive, okay, or cope with the daily stressors of life. What is interesting that stressors before COVID are different compared to the stressors that we are facing now, no? If you are an extrovert and going out, traveling, and dining with friends, meeting people, face-to-face interaction is very important for you. I think that would be a big loss at this time, no? I would hear a lot of extroverts, okay, reacting, although introverts, by the way, enjoy, this particular moment, no? But again, there could be several things, no, that can influence and can cause stressors. Like for instance, if you are the judging type, tama ba? If you are used to having structure, having plans, and making sure that the plans are implemented, again, this is doubly challenging for you, right? And I realize if you're the more spontaneous, open-ended ended person rather, I think you love the challenge of experimenting, having control of your time because you're working from home, right? I think it works well, no? But again, too much lack of structure can also be a challenge for a P because you're all over the place. And I know that I am a P myself. And at a certain point within that 4 months, okay, under pandemic, I realized I can leverage on structure and routine. Okay. And then again, another thing, no? So that's the kind of stressors that we probably had. You know what is interesting? Prior to COVID, I think traffic and commuting for hours and long hours, which is probably not the experience of people in the provinces. But here in the metro, I think that is one of the practically everyone was complaining about that. Or most, no, especially those people who live away from their homes or who work away from their homes, no? So and now that we are I'm talking to my clients, and what is interesting, they miss the commute, the 1 hour 2 hour commute. You know why? Because the commute provides them that respite and the opportunity to get recharged. So like right now, there is no opportunity to transition, right? From the moment you drop your laptop or you close your laptop, and then you go straight right away to washing dishes, attending to your children, or worse. This could be happening simultaneously. So the lack of boundaries are the kind of stressors, no, that we have. So if we don't have the boundaries in the home and the work, and if we don't have the boundaries related to space where we are working, or we don't have the boundaries in terms of our habits, no, the way we care for ourselves, the sleep schedule that we have, the nutrition that we have, all these things can create eventually stressors to us, right? So it's a different kind of stressor. So these are the different stressors, and these are the normal, no? I think that's the buzzword, the new normal. Even the stressors has evolved and has changed. Okay. Now, what is interesting, part of the definition of the World Health, which constitutes a mentally healthy individual, is the last two. Okay, you want the person to be able to be productive at work, no? So significantly producing, effective, and perhaps efficient, although World Health Organization didn't say efficient, but at least being able to contribute, okay, to at work, okay, so that you have I think that's related to occupational functioning in the DSM, right? Now, and the last one is social functioning, that you're able to contribute to society. So I think the last two are the hallmarks also, whether, these are like critical points when you know somebody is already seriously mentally ill, is when the person's occupational and even the relational or social functioning is impaired. Okay, so, okay. Now let's look at the, what is interesting. Uh, I think used to have this paradigm that, depression and anxiety just happens, no? It's either you're depressed or you're not. Okay. But then I think in the course of my practice, there's like that gray area or that progression, no, in between, that, you cannot clearly diagnose somebody who may have depression or anxiety. So it's like a build up. There's like a narrative that happens along the way, no? So there's like a story behind that. And yes, moving on to the, oops. Next. Okay, what's happening here? And then next. Okay, so again, that's part of the stressor. Learning technology for people my age, almost in the senior citizen. So can you just imagine? That's the added stressor, no? So okay, so let's look at the data. Okay, these are the statistics of work employee assistance program, no, 2017. And during that time, it's 1 out of 5, no, is most likely to get depressed and anxious. So these are the popular diagnoses. So if you count 5 people, one of us is most likely, okay, to get depressed and anxious in our career life. Will most likely experience that. And of course, what accounts to that are the work pressure, okay, plus the social relationships, no, or the bullying and the harassment that happens in our workplace or even in our personal space, no. Now, and then of course, there's minimal number of people who may be affected by a more disorganized condition like schizophrenia and bipolar, right? But I think the bipolar now, especially the bipolar 2, okay, with people who come across like, they're very okay, but I think they have challenges surrounding ability to manage their emotions, okay? So it's becoming a frequent incident, no? Now, next move. Okay, now in the Philippines, and I think this is again 27 data prior COVID, no? So that's like 1/3 of the population, or yeah, if not 1/3 rather. It's 0.3%, no, of 100 million. So 3 million, okay, Filipinos may be suffering or who may have a diagnosis of depression. And then another 3 million who may have a diagnosis of anxiety. And you know what is interesting? They were saying in these stats, another million, okay, who may be left undiagnosed, okay, for depression, and another million who may be left undiagnosed for anxiety. So that is prior this pandemic. After, I think by this time, no, you know what, interestingly, there is an increasing call or request for counseling in relation to anxiety, most especially. Uh, in fact, there's a point I had to refrain from accepting, no, Hot in Touch, because I realized I cannot be effective as well, no, because I'm going through my own personal crisis. Now, what's the value of this information? I think, okay, you do not want to reach that end of spectrum, no, where people get to be more disorganized. They manifest this more disorganization in their cognition, in their emotion, and in their behavior, to a point that they just want to end their life. Okay, uh, and I realize most of these people, if they were helped, I think one of the important realizations, both from the counselor and also from the individual consulting, is they just want to quit the job or they just want to quit a relationship, no? But not to quit on life, okay? So interestingly, we have already an increasing number at the time. So I don't know what's the data look, what the picture looks like right now, no, at this point. Okay, next. So a while ago, I mentioned, yeah, depression and anxiety do not just happen. And I love this figure or this graph or whatever you call this, no? Because this is exactly a narrative of depression and anxiety, no? And I use this a lot in even in corporate presentations, because the assumption is all of us at a certain point we function healthily, no? Or most of the time we have healthy states or we are in a healthy condition. And you know, what does it look like? We have work, we have relationships, are able to solve the problems, we're able to manage stress, our sleep is regular, our eating patterns are regular, we can laugh, we can smile, you know, there's a variety of emotions that we can feel, okay? And of course, that's inevitable. It cannot be sustained for some time. Challenges and stressors come into the picture, and at a certain point we will be reacting, right? So if you're not aware of if your resources or what you're doing may not be effective, okay, so you may get sick, you may become irritable, and you may start, you know, feeling wanting to absent yourself and being late in the office, right? Or you tend to slack behind, no, as far as productivity is concerned. So, and then you start withdrawing. But you see, that particular state is not sustained. Somehow, after a few days, like 1 or 2 days, you recover because you realize you have some strategies, okay, or some perspectives and mindsets that you're utilizing that help you bounce back. So that's kind of a mild distress, no? So I think the ability to take care of oneself and our friends, our significant others, okay, or even our pets, no, can help us in terms of bouncing back, or perhaps also the activities, no, that helps us recharged, okay. So I think that's pretty much normal, no? I mean, that happens. That's a story I think that's a story that happens to most of us. But then of course, there's another stage or another phase. That's what we call the injured phase. And this is the time when you're after, you know, getting upset. And, you know, I always say stressors come in waves, right? If you notice our lives before, the commute, the work, our relationships, and then by the time we retire at the end of the day, we had to go home late, and then we have children waiting for us, or a spouse, and then we engage in a fight, okay, or conflict, because you know you cannot get hold of your emotions. So just that entire day, and can you just imagine that kind of day will be replicated time and again. Now, if your strategies or the way you cope may be detrimental to your health and it's not constructive, no, meaning like for instance, I realize computer games, no, online, or Netflix or YouTube, no, or what do you call this, no, or Facebook. I think when you engage in these activities with the intention of de-stressing yourself, no, but then eventually you find yourself getting engaged and losing track of time, and before you know it, your sleep is sacrificed, right? So I won't be surprised if you have been sleeping very late and probably this time getting only 4 hours of sleep instead of the usual 8 hours or 7 hours of sleep. Somehow there may be some impairment that can occur. And then the emotions this time becoming more intense. So the irritability would last for perhaps more times, and then it becomes more widespread and expanded, meaning this time you're not only irritable to one situation, a gamut of situations or people that who for for any are wondering why for a small thing you have such outbursts, no? So again, it does not only manifest in the behavior, okay, but also in the emotions and even in the thoughts. uh, so before, if you used to enjoy going out, then probably this time you started wanting to isolate yourself because you don't have the energy anymore, so hopefully you don't reach the point that you started asking yourself, questioning about the meaning of life and wanting to end your life, but no concrete plan, no attempt, or no specific details, no, on that plan. So if that is the case, and you keep on repeating this, then maybe it's about time that you need to consult someone, no, either for counseling. And usually, the people who come to us, okay, they come in at this phase, and it's good that if they come in at this phase, because this is the thing about here is we are able to help these people by two things. Either, okay, giving them a different mindset about their problems, or second, giving them the tools, no? Because probably the tools or the behaviors that they're doing is not working at this time. Now, what is interesting, it's not only a function of whether your tools are working or not, no? Because if you have a different set of stressors like what we're having right now, right? So we don't have a map, we don't have a plan, we don't have anything at all. So it's like we need to experiment ourselves. I wonder how many of you, you had to try something different because the things that you used to do, or the kind of assumptions that you have in your head, is making the problem worse, making you more angry, no? So if that is the case, we need to ask for some help. Okay, somebody more knowledgeable, more skilled, okay, in terms of addressing that mindset, no? And that behavior change. Now, but you see, some people, they believe that, I can go on with this. Anyway, I can still manage. We have a tolerance level that's high, right? And besides, I think counseling is a very expensive uh, service unless you get it for free, right? So these things, these financial considerations, or perhaps even the lack of awareness, uh what happens is like you keep on delaying. But you see, as you delay, the problems compound. So it generates, no? You have more problems. And hopefully we don't find ourselves in that last stage, no? Where we call ourselves, when we can be diagnosed with a certain condition. So I think at this stage, the person has become more disorganized, no, in thought, in emotions, in behavior, in the way the person is managing things. So, people talking to themselves. I'm not saying that is bad, but you see, aside from that, you're not sleeping. You can't focus. You become more withdrawn. You become more defensive. And not only that, this time, you're not only angry, but you're also feeling sad. And then also worrying. So it's like, you have several conditions occurring. Okay? And hopefully it doesn't reach this point, no? That you become more certain that you want to give up on life, or you started to have plans, or you start ruminating on wanting to give up on life more often. So and I think, I'm now beginning to realize how important sleep is, and nutrition. Because if that is compromised, this one, the injured and the ill, it's just a quick, no, it can happen in a quick instant, no? And yeah, that's how dangerous it is. And usually, when people are desperate, they come to us at this phase. So what do we do? And in fact, before I have ambivalence of, referring people to psychiatrists because of the side effects of medication, because you want them to develop the skills and the perspective which they need, okay? But then I realize when the person has become disorganized, we have no choice. We have to refer them, okay, for medical intervention. And by the way, I think another reason why some people are ambivalent of getting medical intervention is because you do not want to go to the hospitals or to ER, right? ER facilities because of the COVID thing, no? But again, if this is the point where we are or our clients are, I think we have limited choices, no? We only have one, not even, it's not a limited choice, but we only have one choice. And this is when the family also needs to come into the picture because usually the person becomes more defensive. Okay, so let me talk about resilience, no? Which is becoming a popular topic, especially this time. I remember there's an increasing demand before because it's in relation to stress. And of course, we are in the same state, but this time with a different set of stressors. So I think the key words there is adapting well. Given that the stressors that we have, they're new to us, we don't have a template for them. So we're trying to discover, and there might be self-doubt or there might be a question to, am I adapting well? Because you could say I am cognitively, but if your life is disorganized and you're getting more angry and you're frequently shouting, and people around you are becoming more uh you know this is like a sharing, no? I have a mentally ill sister. In fact, what was the wake up call for me is when she made an attempt, a suicide attempt. And in my reflection, I realized I was also the one, my inability to adapt to the stress, no, my difficulty and the challenge of trying to cope with a given situation was also contributing significantly to the worsening of her condition. So I think that is very important, no? And we might be blindsided by our own, but I think it's good to listen to feedback, to observe, and then see for yourself, no? Because there is that kind of connection that we have with our environment. So bouncing forward, no? And bouncing forward is probably far for some of us. And I think you can't also discount the attempts, no? In fact, in the next slide, okay, I'll be showing you where people are, no? The attempts that we make to respond to the challenge, no? Surviving, right? It's like coasting along. So you're trying to deal with the situation like, you have a mom, just trying to do all the responsibilities, work home, and, the marketing and all. And perhaps attending if they're to someone who may be ill in the family. So it's like somebody just coping, no, and responding. But then you realize that the resources of this person is slowly getting depleted. You see a lot of reactions happening. So if you find yourself in that state, barely coping, juggling, okay, so I think the quality of the stuff of the things that you're doing and the relationship somehow is compromised. So it's not enough that you're able to do them, but you may want to assess, okay, the quality of that relationship or the quality of that productivity. Okay, so but that's okay because you're trying to cope. It's an attempt. Now the recovering phase is also interesting. Why? Because this person okay, realizes that the old strategies are not working, just simply moves to a different strategy without realizing that the problem or the impact, okay, is still the same. Example, you know how many of us were using Facebook and Twitter or perhaps YouTube, okay, prior COVID to, because when we were caught in the traffic, these are our preoccupations. Am I right? So, but then, okay, so these are preoccupations, but because we're thinking that this is an opportunity to recharge. Now, if we are still doing the same thing, okay, before we retire to sleep, and because our logic is it's an opportunity to recharge or to make me sleep. If you notice, if you immerse yourself in technology, okay, right before sleeping, okay, and when you realize, when you finally sense that you're feeling sleepy and you decide to, put it down and put it under your pillow, and then the moment the head hits the pillow, you'll find yourself toss and turning for like an hour or two. Can't sleep. Why? Because exactly the technology made your mind active. So if you're using the same strategy or perhaps moving to a different strategy, I think right now people are in Netflix because they're avoiding the negativity in YouTube or in Facebook or news. But yes, you are happy, but then there might be certain resources that you have that may be compromised as well, no? So that's recovering. Okay, so you're able to recover, yes, but that is not sustainable. And I think what we want here is something that you can sustain, right? Because later on, if you find yourself, before it was 6 hours of sleep, now moving to four, now there's more interrupted sleep, perhaps, 2 or 3 hours, because some people are taking more longer naps in the afternoon, and then they're surprised they cannot sleep in the evening. Okay, so that is just recovering, no? The strategies you have opted for are kumbaga are short run solutions. Okay. Okay, I'm getting passionate. I'm just looking at the time, no? Now, what does it mean to thrive? And I think the key word there is sustainable. You cannot be jumping from one cliff to the next, no? I mean, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. Right? And besides, you cannot make that, if you have family members who will do the same thing, not everybody will be able to do that. So it's not sustainable. You want solutions that are sustainable. So yes, you start building a bridge, right? Because of technology, innovation, perspective, right? Learnings and skills, we're able to do something like this, no? And this is what it means to thrive. Right? The solutions that we have in place is more sustainable. Okay? It's not only sustainable for us, and it doesn't only benefit us, but it can benefit everyone, including the weak and the ano no the people with who are differently abled. Okay, so I think we can find ourselves, it can happen that one area of our life we're surviving, another area we're recovering, and there may be other areas of our lives that's thriving, no? So it does not necessarily mean that, this is like uh, somebody who survives moves to the next, and then we could be fluctuating in different aspects of our lives. But I think the key here is this: we need to be aware, which later on brings me to the skills, no? But before I do that, there is like a map of how you can, how can you thrive and how can you be more resilient. And resilience mean, the adaptation that we, or the skills, and including the mindsets that we have acquired, is sustainable. Okay? So next, Yes. So can resilience be developed? I think can optimism be developed? I think at this point, as a professional, you'd probably say yes, no? But you see, what is interesting, if you talk to a lame person, they would say, no, I'm always like this. I'll always be like this. Okay. So I think the testament of the evolution of man, okay, tells us that yes, they didn't have psychology back then, but they were able to, as they listen, as they observe to the environment and to themselves, as they become more aware, okay, that kind of awareness that they brought with them helped them to develop the skills and the tools that they need to develop. And I won't be surprised at this point, okay, we can really be above nature. No? I mean, the things around us, we can manipulate and we can even control them, right? So yes, they can be developed. We can evolve. Next. Yeah. So how do we do that? Okay, how do we do that? No? So like I think this is what we can benefit from the Western, no? In fact, this paradigm is more Western than Eastern, right? Because I think from the Western, it's about understanding the environment, no? Compared to experiencing the environment. But you see, I think there's no difference in that, no? I think we can use our experience, including our emotions, as information to be able to understand to what is happening. What is this pandemic all about, no? What is this stressor that we are experiencing all about? So what's happening outside? But you see, people are always looking outside. They don't look within. And I think as counselors, which I love about why I become a counselor, is it starts looking within. I think our tool, ourselves, because there is a material that you need to look within. That is, there is an internal reality and an internal space that we also need to understand, and its connection with the external environment. So if you're only looking outside, which extroverts would mostly do, but I'm not saying extroverts are not capable of looking within, okay? They are, okay? Okay, they can change, no? So it can evolve. You can learn these skills. So I think it's important to recognize that, because otherwise, if you're only looking outside the situation, the people around this person, it's a limited picture. Like it's a limited part of the puzzle. What you want is a big picture of things. Okay, there's a story outside and there's also a story inside. Okay, and then of course managing resilience, no? And yes, and I think this is mostly the operational side of things. Okay, it's the operational part of and the experimentation, no? And yeah, I'll be talking about that more. And of course, once you have configured, okay, the approach, the behavior, the mindset, okay, then you can start, okay, putting a system. You can start making a system to that. Because what you want is you want to be able to keep that sustainable and replicate that. So that's about growing, right? Okay, until we have another set of challenges, no? Because if that is the case, then it goes back again to understanding that challenge, managing and growing. So this is like happening, no? In a circular or cyclical manner. Okay, next. Yes, it's important to truly understand this. So asking questions, observing, creating and expanding awareness is very important. I think you can leverage on that skill because the more the more information you have, the more aware you are, and the more you're able to organize that information through managing it, okay, the better for you. No, you become effective in terms of your interventions. or strategies and coping. Okay, next. Yes, of course, the managing, no? This is like the operational aspect, You try, you make an attempt. So if your attitude is you're very rigid and you're very, you know, um, you have a set ways of doing things, and when you have a challenge like this, the new challenge, which we don't have a template, then chances are it's difficult. It's really difficult to be able to you'll realize your old ways can create new problems and more stressors. Your old habits can create more problems and more stressors, right? If you're used to, shopping every time there is a sale, or, buying things that sometimes you realize you don't need, what is interesting right now, and if you're doing that online, you might end up, before you know it, one of the issues right now is losing job. That's You're losing the job, and if you're not realizing that too soon, you might not have the resources that you need, no, to be able to afford the basics. And you know what is interesting? The basics: food, shelter, food, and medicine, right? So if you look at your expenses, every time I look at my list, and of course the utilities, no, interesting, interesting. You don't have all that extra things or shopping that sometimes may probably consume most of your financial resources. So this is the time to experiment, to be implementing, observing, getting feedback also from others, also being reflective, okay, and then practicing again, okay, learning by design, right, or design thinking, remember that, very important, no? And then you can also do that not only in the processes of work at work, but also in your own personal processes, no, your own personal challenges, right? So don't be afraid to learn, to initiate, to practice, because remember, we do not have a template. Even if they're saying that this is the template now, it may not necessarily work for you. You may still want to nuance them. Okay? Next. Yes, of course, because we want to be able to reach this phase. Redefinition, no? And you know what is interesting? When you talk about redefining and identifying the strengths, the good, and being more appreciative, I think this requires a mindset, no, a change in perspective or paradigm. It's not the over. In fact, I realize doing things. Okay, you could be changing things, but if your paradigms do not shift, okay, if your mindset do not shift, you'll just be recovering. Remember the example that I mentioned earlier? You'll just be jumping from one relationship to the next, job to the next, strategy, or perhaps movies to the next if you're using Netflix, no? I think what you want to understand is to ask yourself what matters to you. Okay, what is important here? What's working and what's not working? And you need to have an eye and an appreciation for that, because I think it's human nature to be pessimist, no? Uh yeah, it's human nature to be a pessimist. Oh well, I could be wrong. Sorry. There are optimistic people genetically, no, but I realize when you become more stressed, you become more challenged, or you have become more tired and exhausted. Right away, if you look at your perspective, if you look at the things that you're saying to yourself, they're mostly destructive, critical, or it's about negativity, no, towards yourself and others, or there's so much self-doubt, no? Okay, so again, what we want is sustainable, no? Now, I think the second part is important. Yes, the core skills. That's I learned Rogers when I was in UP Diliman. That was 1985. That was when I graduated, no? And I also that this skills, okay, was more reinforced, and I think I became more an expert, no, when I went to Center for Family Ministries. That's 1990 to 92. When every time when we were trained to listen to tapes, okay, to I think there's really a value on listening to audio tapes of clients, no, or practices like that, because the skills of powerful asking the powerful questions and listening becomes more enhanced, no, or it's more enhanced, that so that you are able to know once when somebody is emotionally low. There's a lot of that's an emotionally loaded statement, or that's a neutral statement. You know what is interesting? We rely on phones right now. Some of us doing counseling, not face to face, but all this tele how you call that, no, tele resources. Uh, and I think if you're not trained to listen to that nuances on someone raising a voice, or throat clearing, okay, or the questions that you're asking are mostly related to events, to people outside, more than questions internally, I think you you may not be able to help that person substantially. Of course you will. You can give an advice, one or two, no? But I think what we want to have a change of mindset, and a change of that's a change of attitude and a change of heart, no? And that's what we call the attitude. So that's the reason why I like to emphasize the attitude, because I love learning skills, solution focus. What else? No, mindful skills. You know what is interesting? I've been learning mindful skills, mindfulness, no, for the past 2 years, and it's been like I'm getting frustrated with myself, because I understand it. I know what questions to ask, but again, when you are leading people to a meditative guide, your attitude will come out. Okay, if you are the striving person, no, it's like you spend less time on being. Okay, you're focusing on the goals, the things to do, right? Even the ing word, no, because you know what is interesting, in mindful meditation, the word of what's that, verb participle or active participle, using ing, starting your verb with that, something like that, makes a big difference. The effect is different. It softens, it softens the instructions that you give. So yeah, and if you're just memorizing the script, it will come out. Okay, and you will realize that as you're guiding people, they get affected. They get affected by your guidance. They get stressed. They can't concentrate. Their mind starts to drift. Okay, so it's not just only an issue of asking the right questions, no, and also how to respond, or crafting your next statement or response. I also love Carl Rogers, because the unconditional positive regard, the empathy, and self-actualization, actually they're also very much present in the mindfulness. But then I think curiosity, but I think the curiosity is just asking and listening more, observing for more information. And I will tell you later on, that there is a map of that internal space. And if you want to, curiosity is a your curiosity is a test, no, will be tested by that map as well, no. And then patience, your comfort level as a counselor to stay with the chaos of your clients, or with your own chaos, and listen and continue listening and observing. and then letting go. May it be pleasant or unpleasant experience. They come and go. The temporariness of things. I think if you're the depressive type, you tend to hold on to your negative thoughts and patterns. And then if you're the very happy person, happy-go-lucky type, the pleasant experiences. And then maybe for some of us, we're difficulty dealing right now, or our clients, difficulty dealing with the challenges of this present situation because their minds, their hearts are still grieving for the old strategies that they have. Because they realize, I cannot travel anymore. In fact, they're still making an attempt, or they're still planning and asking questions when the next travel would be like, or, as simple as this, no? We're not giving up on tourism. Well, I'm not saying giving up, no? But I think we also need to prioritize agriculture now. Right? So we see it in the macro picture, we see it in the micro picture, and we see it even internally, no? So, yeah, the temporariness of things. And I think that's the kind of attitude, the patient that can maybe we bring along, okay, especially with the challenges of our clients and also our own personal challenges. Why? Because, okay, I will say the takeaway later on, no? But let me just put you on hold to surprise you, because I also want to discuss the next. In the internet, there is something that goes around that says anatomy of feelings, no? Or emotions. And they have thoughts, body sensations, and impulses and emotions, right? But I realize I don't want to call it that, because I want to incorporate consequences, no? Because the story does not stop. Okay, the story does not stop when somebody starts acting out. There are implications of our behavior. Somebody gets hurt, deliverables get delayed, okay, some serious consequences of losing a job, okay, so things of that sort, no? So we want to look into that anatomy of experience, and maybe I will put that like an internal experience, because the consequences is also requires reflection on or being mindful of what that consequences are. So yes, so when something happens right away, probably if you're the feeling type, you have a reaction, you're in touch right away, or perhaps most of the time you're just in touch with your reaction, and the rest becomes oblivious, no? But actually, most emotions would stem from certain assumptions. Okay? And then body sensations. You know what is interesting? With this COVID pandemic, there are a lot of people going to the ER because they're feeling tightness in their chest, or there's palpitation. So a lot of individuals are more in touch right now with body sensations. And they panic because the thought pattern tells them that they have anxiety, or there's something wrong. They're having a heart attack. But when after going through several tests, the vitals are okay, the doctor starts saying, oh, probably the person has a GERD, okay, or perhaps the person really has an anxiety attack, okay. So, and then again, for the more impulsive ones, I think this can be challenging also at this time, because if you're just, if you're used to just going out, doing activity, talking, now, okay, probably this is more contained, no, or limited. So I think that itself, okay, if you're used to that kind of experience, or just focusing on that experience alone, it can also be a challenge, no? So we want to go through to this process. So we want to go through this like also with ourselves, right? Because that is what you call the expanded awareness. When you start getting more information, grounding yourself internally and externally, then you realize that the problem is not anxiety at certain occasions. It could just simply be you haven't been, well, you haven't been sleeping, or you're just overwhelmed. Or I have one client who is simply angry because, she's working from home and she has an alcoholic father. The father starts raising his voice, feeling palpitation. She thought she's having an anxiety attack. Then I just went through this patiently, with acceptance, with temporariness, and the attitude of that that the person knows, except probably the person didn't have the vocabulary or just needs to tell that full narration. And I realized she is not anxious. She is angry. Okay? It's just that the first thing that happens to her every time when she feels an intense emotion is palpitation. Right? So can you just imagine somebody who's having that, no? And by that mere symptom, or that mere attribute, becomes the basis of your judgment and becomes the basis of your intervention. You may not be addressing the real issue. And I think as counselors, we realize that there is always a difference between a presenting issue and a real issue. So you want to get that narrative out, that narration out. Okay. Ooh, so I have an example. Do we still have time? You know what's interesting? Every time I flash this exercise, how many of you feel about rock climbing? You have one stimuli, but you have a gamut of reactions. Okay, and every time after the next question, I ask them, so how come, how come you're feeling anxious, you don't want to try it, or perhaps you feel excited, you want to try it. You will see there's a difference of assumptions that goes on in their head, no? So that alone, we don't realize how powerful our attributions are, or perhaps our beliefs or mindsets that can influence our emotions. Right? And yes, you cannot say to your client, forget about that. Stop feeling that way. And it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. I think what you want to get is the story of that assumptions. No? What happens? How did he get that? How did he arrive at that emotion? What were the thoughts, the thought patterns, no, the paradigms that exist? Because there's better chances, no, of retooling, or perhaps not retooling, changing or shifting the perspective, right? So I think that's the value, no? That's just one example. And I think, when maybe to be more relevant now, if you ask what this pandemic mean, probably again, it's a mix, no? People at the first month will have a different reaction if they are on the third month. Now, if they are on the third and the fourth month, there are different nuances, right? There may be certain aspect of your life you're reacting positively, and then there may be certain aspect of your life that you're reacting negatively. So it's really unfair, no, to put them or lump them in one statement and say it's working for me or it's not working for me. So questions like, what's working for you and what's working for me. So yes, that's the importance of narratives, no? And yep, getting into that internal space and the mindfulness, no? And I think people also have a misconception that, you get, because there's already a lot of apps, by the way, on mindfulness. You just listen to it. And I think what people pay attention to is the value that they're able to get to sleep or they're rested. Okay. And if there is anything that they remember about mindfulness, that's the one, no? Without realizing, it's like the quality of paying attention, no? It's a quality of awareness by paying attention to what's happening to you right now in the experience level. Okay. So I'm so intense. And I think I need to rest for a while and be mindful for a while. And probably you hear my voice moving up and down erratically. So maybe let's do some mindful exercise. Now, I'll just walk you through to a 3-minute breathing space. No? And let's see if you're able to notice one thing, no, from that exercise. Okay, so find a more comfortable sitting position. Okay, or if you're standing, you can maintain that. Anyway, this is just a 3-minute. But chest rising, and then noticing, and if you close your eyes, or if you're not comfortable closing your eyes, you may you can keep it, keeping it half closed, half open. And then focusing your attention or noticing the posture as the chest rises or rising, you will notice a change in the posture. So trying to make that position also relax, but yet not stiff, and observing that alignment in the neck, the ears, and the shoulders, and arms falling on the sides. Noticing the sensation that you're currently experiencing in your body. Perhaps the pressure of the buttocks on the chair you're sitting on, or the floor on your feet, or the sensation perhaps of your hands on your lap, or perhaps on each other. Noticing also the sensation of the part of your skin which doesn't touch any object. Perhaps the light breeze of the fan, or the absence of sensation at all. Perhaps also you're noticing how you're breathing at the moment, or perhaps also noticing some body sensations. So listening to what's there around you, perhaps the sounds in the environment, or the sounds inside your body. And then also tuning in, focusing on the thoughts. What's there right now? Sometimes the thoughts could be moving and then another one rising and dissipating. Or sometimes the thoughts could just stay. Just acknowledging the thoughts, what's present here at the moment. Perhaps you're also noticing some emotional reactions. That's okay. If you can label that experience or these emotions that you're currently experiencing. So continue listening to what's present in your body sensations. And then breathing in and breathing out.
Just noticing what is arising and staying perhaps, or dissipating, or perhaps another thing that's arising again. In the second portion, focusing your attention this time to your breath, the movement in that lung, or perhaps the abdominal muscle, or perhaps for some people, the movement of air moving in and moving out of the nostrils. So focusing on that part where you experience your breath more prominently. Continue experiencing the breath. Now, if there are thoughts and body sensations that's still prominent, it's okay, just acknowledging, but then bringing and guiding the attention again this time to your breath. Noticing the movement of the breath in that part of your body. And then as best as you can, staying with the movement as you inhale and as you exhale. And in the next out breath, expanding, preparing to expand your attention, moving to the other parts of your body, the legs, the torso, the chest, the head, and then also being aware again of the sensation of the environment around you, the sounds that you hear, the texture of the chair you're sitting on, or the pressure of the chair on your buttocks, and the pressure of the floor and the feet, the contact point. And then moving your attention again, this time on your face and the spine. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes, moment by moment by moment. Okay. Sige. Okay. So I think, anyone, can I just ask some participation? Hey, I can't see the chat box. Can somebody mention to me what did you notice in that exercise? Anyone? Is there anything that you notice in what we did other than the effect, no? Of the exercise, feeling more relaxed. But anyone who may like to share, you can unmute para I can hear exactly what you guys. Oh, no right
Just
or wrong answer. Yes.
it's non-judging, and at the same time, it's letting go.
Okay. What do you mean by that? What in the practice that you felt that it's not judging and letting go? What
You
is
just
it? Yeah. Can you
yes,
be more?
you just allow the person to be what he is, where he is, without making any judgments, whether it is good or whether it is bad. It's just
Okay.
letting be. And then the
Okay.
second part is the letting go. It's just, as one inhales and exhale, it's just
Okay.
letting go of the breath. of life and
Yes.
taking in the breath of life, and then letting go once more of the negativities that the person might have
Okay.
during the week.
Okay. So, Father RC, thank you for responding. I hope you don't mind if I ask something further. So, what was the experience like for you? What
It
did
was
you
very
observe and
relaxing.
what happened to you?
Okay,
Ah,
it was
okay. So
very
that's
relaxing.
relaxing.
Yes,
Did you notice
especially.
anything?
Yes, I noticed that it's possible to relax anywhere. Um, you don't have to have a grand, a vacation. Uh,
Ah,
Relaxation can be done in the comforts of where the person is, and it's non-expensive because you just close your eyes, focus on your breath, and that's it. That the person gets refreshed immediately.
okay. Sige. Thank you, Father RC, no, for sharing, right? And I think the effect, no, and people remember mindfulness exactly because of that relaxation, that effect, no, that relaxing effect. But you see, when we ask people, what did you notice? And usually, when I raise that question, people would notice, I wonder how many of you also struggled because there were a lot of thoughts happening, no? Perhaps there were so many noises that's in the background or things to do that you need to, probably you haven't cooked the meal or perhaps you're starting to question some of the things that I'm teaching, or perhaps you have all these kinds of reactions. I wonder how many of you, when you started the activity, there was so many things going on, thoughts, feelings, and even body sensations. Just say yes. Say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And that's really hard. And you know what? People do not associate mindfulness with that, right? I think part of mindfulness is when you experience this chaos that happens, you notice it, you pay attention to it, and then gently, after acknowledging, bringing your attention with patience or with kindness to the breathing. In this case, the anchor is the breathing, right? So I think people have that kind of misconception. It's about the breathing. But it's also okay to pay attention, and it's also mindfulness when you pay attention on what is happening to you or the chaos that's happening to you, right? Because look, if you look at the definition, it's really a moment by moment awareness of our thoughts, feelings, body sensations, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. And after acknowledging, without judging, like what Father RC mentioned, because sometimes we get gripped. Hey, that's unpleasant. Hey, this is pleasant. I want to stay here, right? I want to listen more to this, no? So we have that's the kind of gripping that happens to our attention. So I think when you notice that your mind is gripped, noticing it is also being mindful. And then gently and patiently guiding back the attention to an anchor, like this time it's a breath. Okay, so that's interesting trivia that I don't know where people are aware of. That mindfulness is not only about the anchors that we picked, but it's also you're also being mindful when you pay attention even to that pleasant or unpleasant, when you're aware of it and acknowledge it. Okay. Now, what's the important takeaway? Yes, it's broadened awareness, right? Because remember, there is a reality outside, there's a reality inside. And you know what is interesting? People do not have labels for the experience internally. In fact, they're also lacking in accuracy. Remember the stories that I have before? The palpitation could be slightly interpreted.
or even the emotion, no? The emotion, like, I realize there's racket feelings. Like, people are in touch with, uh, how would I put this, sadness. Well, in fact, they're probably angry. Or kasi it's not culturally accepted to be angry with God. Okay? Or you don't like, you want to avoid God, or you're hurt because God, but actually part of the emotion is they're angry. So they cannot acknowledge that emotion. So uh I think the thing here is this. It affects, okay? I I think you all know, when you have an expanded awareness of things that's happening around you, you can better come up with interventions. In fact, more accurate interventions that's more responsive, right? And I think there is also that impact in our environment, no? So it's that back and forth exchange of information that happens with us and an environment. That's the reason why I want to emphasize, and I do not want to leave out the ability to make reflections on the consequences, no, of what we do, because that is very important. Okay, that's part of the equation. And I think you only have half of the equation if you're only looking at your internal experience, right? We're blindsided by one aspect. That's the reason why when we're doing family therapy, you know, just an example, no? You can hear a different story from one member of the family, but if you see them together, it tells you a different story. So I think that's parallel, no, to that experience. Okay. Yes, and of course. Okay, so other than awareness, we want to facilitate the paradigm shift, or that mindset, no, that shift in paradigm. And I think you're familiar with this. Every time I attend the PGCA, there's always a gamut of interventions there that, hoping to teach us with all this, no? And I think these are good, no? Because remember, if you look at this, the questions that you ask, okay, would come from these kinds of mindsets, no, the paradigms. And it's important to acknowledge, to have these paradigms in place, so that it affects or it impacts the questions that you will ask. For instance, like solution focus, what is interesting, right? And I think one of the significant learning in my practice is when you're always asking symptoms, causes, and then another problem comes in, you find yourself getting lost in the problem. And I realize I don't want to see the client anymore, or I feel more exhausted, right? And I think it's good practice to be able to ask, because it's not always the case that, the person have this problem. I wonder, there may be occasions that person is not experiencing the problem. So if you punctuate that and make the person aware of that, I wonder what is that person working and thinking all about, right? So of course, the CBT that's incorporated in the MDCT or the DBT, for I think that that particular tool is very good on emotional regulation, and of course the psychoeducation aspect. No, okay. So all of this, it's the next level. Okay, aside from, before you want to put in information, okay, I think that we all know this, right? Before we give information, we want that expanded awareness happening. Okay, so of course, Carol Dweck's growth mindset, I think key questions that are important, learnings, doing things differently, or how do I define myself this time, no? Because every situation brings out a different attribute of ourselves, no? And of course, the popular solution focused, right, of Insu Kimberg and Steve DeShazer. And of course, I have colleagues, Jelly and Agnes, who are teaching this right now. And what's interesting about this thing? Yes, okay. Let me just do the comparisons, no? Flash it all. Okay. I apologize for the slow. I'm sure the millennials are able to do this faster. Okay. Oops. Okay, now I'm okay. Previews. Okay, that's too much. Okay. So again, that's the difference, no? The mindset, the perspective is different because again, you know what is interesting? Okay, the different mindset brings about a different set of questions or interventions, no? So if your practice is you're still doing you still have this paradigm about our client's problem that there is always a cause, what are you inadequate at, you know, the mistakes and the challenges, then it can be limiting. I'm not saying it's not working, but it can be limiting, no? Because I surprisingly there are some people are helped by just simply talking about all this negativity in their life, right? But you see, you do not want to give that. You want to give them more value, okay, for their money. Now, what's that value, right? Okay, so you want you to lead them, no, to something to that they become more proactive in the process, right? Because exactly there must be a moment in their life, no, that or a moment in the similar situation, a time with similar problem, no, no, they were very effective in addressing that issue. Okay. Now, instead of focusing on the challenges and the limitation, oh nga, no, I can package it in terms of a goal that I can learn, I can develop, right? I can accomplish and I can achieve. So it makes things proactive. And you know what is interesting? The subtle impact, no, of the change, the courage and the confidence it brings to the individual. And yep, okay. So it helps, right? Yes, and of course, CBT, interesting. I'm sure you have used this at one point in your career. So you ask the person to describe the situation and what the mood is. And if there's a rating scale, you ask them to write them down. And of course, you want to ask what the automatic thoughts are. These are like the assumptions and the thoughts, no, that goes on in their heads. And this is like the habits people have, no? So if there are habits of behavior, there could also be habits of thinking. And then you want to challenge them this in the next two columns, no? Is there really an evidence to that? Okay, or maybe is there an evidence that do not support that? Or an evidence that supports that, no? So after going through that exercise, then you may want to raise the question, after going through this, I wonder how do you look at this right now? And if there is a shift, which is possible, okay, then you can ask also, and how does that affect your mood or emotion? So you just want to gauge, right? Because again, I think this is a concrete way of measuring, okay, whether that intervention is effective or not, right? So CBT has that strength, no? And then there could be a gamut of other CBT approaches that you can use, no? But I don't want to spend on that because, that's I think not okay. And then of course, yes, the third part rather, I just want to say it's important, but I there are more things, no, that you can use. So be on purpose. So helping people look at purpose and meaning, no? And I think last time I listened to Father Roger Shampoo's lecture, and he mentioned the book on the meaning. I forgot the title, but it's Emily Smith, no? And interestingly, uh, well, we have this positive psychology, okay, who's also making an attempt, to help people move from pessimism to optimism. But sometimes it's not just looking always for what's positive and or entertaining and engaging activities. But I think what Emily Smith emphasized also, because in his study and his interview with people, the pain that they experience, the challenges that they're able to experience, contribute significantly to their meaning. So when you have a painful experience that you went through, right? It becomes part of a story, because the story does not stop there. Because the next question, so how did you evolve right now? What you're doing? What did you learn from that experience? When these questions are elevated to the consciousness of the individual, the person starts to get to appreciate, no, that experience, or see that experience in a different light. And then if you ask further questions like, where is this leading you, no? The fact that you have this experience and you learn this, where is this moving you, no? If you want to be more spiritual about it, where is the spirit leading you right now? So they start to look at this as their advocacy, right? I think you've heard those stories, those kinds of stories, when it becomes their advocacy and their purpose, right? And when you have that big picture, that connection, okay, that opportunity to narrate your story, to evolve that story from a story of pain to its redeeming element, it's a picture of meaning, okay, other than belonging to a group, no? So that's what Emily Smith mentioned or discussed in that book. And you know what is interesting? Yeah, they discovered that also, yeah, it's one of the important elements of resilience, no? Because, yeah, when you're able to see the meaning of what you're going through, that it makes the suffering more bearable, right? Are the priests listening to me? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Then, of course, the walking the wise. Thanks, Father RC. Okay. Sige, walking your wise, no? You know what is also interesting? There have been a lot of research cited in the Grit book. I forgot the author of that famous Grit book, no? And then also the book of mm, the upside of stress, no? And they were citing studies that, actually the stressor or the pain people experience can also, aside from increasing your cortisol levels, okay, that can be deterrent to your health, a deterrent to your health. Aside from that, the body also excretes, no, certain hormones like the DHEA or the oxytocin, okay, that, science at this point saw, okay, or through their research has validated, and they realize when you're able to reach out more, okay, and ask help, especially in the midst of a crisis, okay, the impact of stress or cortisol in the system is diminished. Meaning, uh, the kind of mindset that people bring in, okay, and when people reach out to a community, or perhaps when they acknowledge relationships, now it has a bearing on our physical health, right? No wonder now mothers, in fact, there was a study cited, they did this like, I think way back 1990s or 2000, when they experimented, no, people went through the stress and they evaluated on the effect of the stress. They asked only two questions. The most stressed persons and the ones who suffered, I think this is a long-term study, the ones who suffered debilitating consequences, okay, in fact, some of them passed on, no, were the ones who have elevated amount of stress and who look at stress negatively. And interestingly, the ones who made it, okay, who have better health outcomes, are the ones who are also who experience a, a degree, an intense degree of stress, but also they believe that stress is good for them. So it's a function of, whether you believe that stress is bad for you or good for you. So it has its physical benefits, and science is able to see this at this point. Okay, and of course, I think what is relevant now is sleep and nutrition. Before, probably discussions on this, it's not so popular because I think people have ways of coping. I remember every time I have discussions on sleep or on health hacks, I remember only few people, there's only few attendees. Probably they realize, YouTube and Netflix and, Facebook is better alternative course of action to to relieve yourself of stress. And people do not realize that, they have a lot of misconceptions surrounding sleep that contributes to their sleeping problem. Okay, like spending, which I mentioned earlier, like, using the gadgets to make you sleep, or sometimes as basic as drinking beer, half a bottle of beer or one bottle of beer to make you sleep. They don't realize it affects the quality of sleep, no? So I think this is important to educate our clients, because a lot of these factors right now can be contributed by these elements, no? What they're doing to themselves along this area, the food that they're ingesting, and whether they're giving themselves permission to sleep. Okay. Yep. Okay. So, 47, 13 minutes. Yep. Sorry, I took so much time. I thought I would have extra time, more extra time, but looks like, yes, can I have questions? We now open the floor for questions, and perhaps the host earlier, can you help me? Because I don't, and I think it's better if you just raise your question verbally, because I can't see my chat box. I have to do something
Okay.
else.
Okay. Not a problem, Doc Josie. I have already harvested some
Ooh.
questions. Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
sige.
so
Okay.
sige, go.
Yeah, have a breather for a while we are while we are getting some questions. Okay. Now, we would like to thank again our participants all over the country. And I've seen we have some participants also abroad from Indonesia.
Ooh.
Uh, yeah, I saw one earlier. I think
So how many
he
participants do we have on
right
board?
now, we the viewers via YouTube around 3,400 to 3,500
Yes.
viewers. Yes,
Okay.
and marami po tayong participants from all over Philippines, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, even as far as Basilan. I think I've seen a comment earlier. They're telling us na they're watching from the parts of the Philippines. Now, Doc Josie, I would like uh, uh, to read some questions asked by our participants. The first question, hi po ma'am. I will read it in verbatim po. Hi po ma'am, just want to ask, are teachers not most likely to suffer from depression because of their lives revolved around too many avenues to express their feelings to people around them? It seems, are they the one who are teachers not most likely to suffer from depression because of the experiences they're having, especially in the bulk of work, also dealing with some concerns and issues of their learners?
Mhm.
What
Yes.
can, yes,
Yeah,
your action, please.
but you know what? I think some of them, kasi it's really difficult to get a clinical diagnosis with 9 or 6 of the symptoms. Remember, you have to have all for a clinical
Yeah,
diagnosis. I
yeah, yeah.
somehow, some of them would probably have 4, but progressing to 5 to 6,
Mm-mm.
no?
Yeah.
So that's, I think that explains the other million that's not reported or
Yeah.
undocumented. And
And
alam mo, the thing here is this. Every time I listen to a story of depression and anxiety, there is a story of physical and emotional exhaustion. There is. And I can relate to that. When you're physically and emotionally, I won't be surprised, if your interventions and what you're doing to yourself to take care of yourself is not effective enough, or you're not efficient in handling these challenges, chances are you might find yourself accumulating more of the symptoms that eventually may give you a diagnosis of depression or anxiety. So please, no, take care of ourselves. And we're Filipinos, we like to always give to others. We always forget ourselves. Yep. Or
well,
Asians.
yeah. Thank you for that reminder, Doc Josie. And I do believe kasi from the comments of our YouTube viewers, I do believe at least half of our viewers are teachers, especially
Mm.
from Dep Ed. Now, actually, I have a second question here. Supposedly, lately lang to na pumasok. But in relation to the first question, yung katanungan niya po is, what should teachers do when students begin to unload personal issues that can disrupt the flow of the academic instruction? For example, sadness affecting his or her concentration.
Okay. Okay. I always tell this to teachers and even to managers, no? When somebody comes, kasi that person is already making a move. And usually if you do not see that move happening and the response is parang taking it, dismissing it, or taking it for granted, because I understand, no? Because you could be busy, you could be overwhelmed yourself. I think it's important to just simply engage. Okay, you do not have to stay for more than 15 minutes or 30 minutes, no? Just engage, ask the questions of that. Remember the questions that I have. How do you feel? What thoughts are happening? What do you think? And then I think what you want that kind of engagement because you want to be able to refer that person to a counselor. It's like a handhold that you need to do. And I'm not requiring teachers to be spending counseling hours with their students. Of course, if you genuinely want that, sure. I think that's much appreciated. But if it's too much for you, just give them like what? I think you can have this conversation even for 15 to, because in crisis line, they engage. And I think that's the amount of time that's expected in that engagement so that you'll be able to handhold and refer them to a professional. So make sure you have a professional in mind.
Wow. Thank you for that very, very practical tip actually, Doc Josino.
Yeah.
Siguro this is where we can embody or we can apply the psychological first aid, no? The look,
Ah,
listen,
yes.
yeah, the link. Oh, kasi we're I think that the question na ask was more of the practical side. Yeah. Siguro dito papasok yung PFA, the look, listen, and link. Then after that, we link it sa professional.
Yes.
Now,
Well said.
siguro a follow-up question, Doc Josie, kasi again, we are dealing with at least 50% of our viewers are educators. Well, from the other side or from the higher perspective, no, siguro what can you recommend to Department of Education, for example, with all the workload that our teachers are experiencing, especially in dealing with their mental health? Kasi kanina, uh, workload, the physical aspect would well affect on might trigger or would add up to depression. So I mean, from your end, uh, what can you recommend to that ed when it comes to the workload of our teachers?
Naku, that's not my expertise. I'm not part of that. So I think
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
a
From a
systems problem that maybe can
mm,
be responded by a person who's looking at it systemically, no? But siguro,
okay, okay.
like what if I may base it from the teachers, no? I think sometimes kasi we always experience also, alam mo yung umaabot ka minsan sa, you reach the end of the spectrum. I would always say that. When you reach the end of the spectrum, you become a client yourself. You're so disorganized, you're shouting, you're angry, and then you're not sleeping, and then even your thoughts are disorganized. No? So I think that's our responsibility to ourselves. That hopefully we don't reach that point. Remember that that spectrum that I was talking about earlier. That's the reason why I'm leveraging on self-awareness as a skill. Observing yourself according to that anatomy of experience. Remember, okay, the anatomy of experience of emotions, because you know that I realize there's value to that when you're able to see what's happening to you, because you do not want to get caught in a situation where others are seeing it and you cannot see that, right? When you become a problem to your children, a problem to the students, a problem to your colleagues, right? And again, when it reached the point because you missed that out, I think we just need an attitude of humility and be open, because if that there is a pattern in this feedback, I think we just want to listen to that, no? And I think I always have this as a philosophy: whatever your profession is, whether you're an accountant, you're a president, or I think the capacity for self-reflection and self-awareness is critical, right? Because, when we are already at this age and stage of our life, what we do impacts others. Okay, we want to be servant leaders, if I may be spiritual, or we want to see that impact right away. We do not want to cause more problem, because effective leaders are able to see the problem early on. Okay, they're not blindsided because of their ego. They're protecting their ego and self-interest, or they did. I think that's the key. Uh, and I think you'll be a better person. You impact them also positively. And you know what? There's a study right now. Again, it also impacts your well-being. There's a science to kindness. When you're kind, okay. And let me just tell you this: I can also be mean. I have my mean moments with my sister. But then I realize I have to be aware of that, because if I am not aware, I will continue ranting and putting her down. So the moment awareness comes in, you check yourself. So you stop yourself from doing that and you try something else. Remember the managing aspect? You experiment. Because again, we do not have a template. We do not have a template. So what we need is we need to be brave enough to make experimentations, and we need to be humble enough to see, no, to observe how our behaviors impact others, so that we can all be together, no, surviving, not only surviving, thriving after this.
Wow, wow, very good point, Dr. Josie, regarding self-awareness. No, uh, that is why siguro some of our participants, or one of our participants actually asked, can the technique of kanina yung ginamit mo po is yung the breathing, calming, grounding exercise, or the technique, can it be applied when having telecounseling to a senior high school student po? That's the question.
Alam mo, actually, the thing here is this, there's not no package answers, no? You have to customize kasi there are some students, it's difficult for them to sit, okay, and listen to a narration like that, no? Do you know that you can also be mindful by eating, by doing yoga, or doing, what's this? I don't do it, Zumba. Zumba, no? Because remember, when you're doing this activity, you're noticing the movement, the sensation in your body. Okay, when you're engaged in that awareness, that can also be a mindful exercise. So there may be some people who may be active, okay, or who are, yeah, behaviorally, how would I call this? Behaviorally restless, okay? So I think that maybe the 3 minute can be okay, but you may want to have a lot of that. In fact, you know what is interesting when you get the mindfulness course? Mindfulness has different anchors, meaning you can use the breath, you can use the sounds, you can use body sensations, you can use movement, you can even use walking as anchors. So I hope you get a chance to look at that, no? To look at that or invite speakers, no? We have speakers from si Quito from InTouch, and I'm sure there are other mindfulness. Oh, let me promote also Friendly Care of Iris Trinidad and Tess Panganiban. Yeah, they're the proponents in the Philippines, of this mindfulness. That's where I got my training. Okay, and we were trained under the Center for Mindfulness based in Toronto, Canada. So it's a good opportunity. So you may want to tap them as well. DepEd.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Doc
Systems.
John.
We need to work systemically.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
systematically. Yes po. Uh, Actually, Doc Josie, I am very overwhelmed by the questions, especially
Mhm.
in educational setting. Ang dami
Sige.
pong katanungan I mean from the educational sector. But before we further proceed, siguro I'll have a segue, no. Um uh, yung going back with the technique of the mindfulness, there's a question here. Can this be used for an individual experiencing postpartum?
Okay. It's like this, no? Sometimes you do not have to use this, okay? I think by just merely asking questions, like, remember the anatomy of experience that I mentioned? Some people, they don't have to go through this exercise. Right away, they give you a narrative. So it's important for you to be ready to capture it in those categories. So, and then maybe you may want to expound further. So mindfulness is only one tool, but sometimes an ordinary conversation, especially the one who's already depressed, no, might be open. Because I think my worry is, remember, you do not have to limit your tool to one. Okay? And you may want to try also. I think one of the things that I also learned, no, as a practitioner, and the wisdom that was brought, as you grow older, I think you want to see whether, okay, is this tool appropriate at the moment? You can make an attempt. Is this helping the person? Or is this more, and then I will always ask the question, how do you find that? Because if the person says, I cannot concentrate, I can have difficulty, because really some people, or a lot of people, have difficulty keeping still with silence and listening to their breath. So you can make an attempt.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Doc Josie. Now, let's go back to the to some questions. Well, again, another segue. A question, Doc Josie: is it safe to take some medicines or pills for headache or momentary relief if unable to sleep or cope with overwhelming stress, especially for teachers coping with instructional changes for the new normal? Wow.
Please don't don't take biogesic or all, no. I'm sorry, but there are, I know there's some people who are taking antihistamines for sleep, no. Um some, feedback from my clients, most of the clients I am talking to, when they go through that, what happens to them, they realize that the sleep is superficial, mababaw, no? Because why? They're sleeping for longer hours, but then when they wake up, they're still tired. Okay, one, you may want to try behaviors like do not sleep in the afternoon. You only nap earlier than 2 o'clock, and then perhaps less than 30 or 20 minutes. And then second, stop your gadgets, get off the grid, okay? 1 hour before, try not to eat too much, 2 hours to 3 hours before. Try not to drink either. You may want to schedule your exercises early in the morning. Now, the safest the ones that, although I try to experiment, the chamomile tea, which is a calming effect, is good. And then second, ano pa ba, no? So food that, it's easy to digest, especially in the evening. By the way, wrong food combination like carbs and meat. Okay, that's fit for life. You know what is interesting? It's difficult to digest, and it also affects the quality of your sleep. Uh, ano pa, no? What else? So these small things, no, or lacking in certain vitamins, like I think it's D, uh, omega fish oil helps. These things you may want to try. I and the disorganized. I'm not saying you go right, kasi these medications, the other medications you're opting for. I'm worried about if you are already frequently taking them, because if that is the autopilot behavior, it's not also good for your kidneys or for your liver. Yeah, don't rely or depend on that, no. There's more things that you can do other than that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Doc Josie. No, you could see they're trying to. Some of them are trying to cope, but well, for some they might venture to this somehow negative coping patterns. Now, Doc Josie, of course, the one question here, a very common question when in webinars. Can we have now your
Mhm.
slide presentation?
Okay, can I just give the PDF file? Will that be okay?
Yeah.
Sure. Sige,
Yes,
I'll send
sure.
it to you. I'll send it to Chris and to the
Chris, yes.
PGCA Secretariat, the
Yes,
PDF
po.
file. Sure.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doc Josie. Now, siguro, we will entertain last two questions.
Sure.
Now, this one, Doc Josie, paano po kung yung client is in active depressive state? The more they think about it, the more they become agitated. How can we make them calm when the client can't even make the breathing right?
Okay. I think you stop yourself from doing counseling intervention, no? You just ask few questions, what the experience is, but the intention of the question is to connect and engage so that it creates a space of trust, and then you'll be able to handhold the other person to the professional, no? Because I think if that is the case, baka they need to be addressed by a psychologist, and then the psychologist will be able to determine if it's already a candidate for a medication, no? Yeah. Pero normally, pag ganon, after talking to a person for 30 minutes, even in my practice, and I realize we are not going anywhere in the counseling, the person is not able to, cannot focus, cannot concentrate, is all over the place, uh, bringing up so many things.
with less continuity, then I recommend the person for a psychiatrist. And normally the person would say no, and I get in touch with a family member. So in counseling, it's also important to have the emergency contact person of a family member, because you want you want to call the attention of the family member, because part of the confidentiality agreement is when the person is in danger, especially a danger to himself or to anyone, you have to call the attention of the family member. Okay? That's the kind of disorganization that, wherein the person needs help.
Thank you for that, Doc Josie. Before our last question, I would like to read a comment here. Hello, Doc Josie. Your voice is therapeutic, and the exercise us you made us to do is so cathartic.
Salamat
It's not
po.
just it's not just relaxing, but becoming more aware of what's happening, both internal and external. Yes, magandang comment from one of our participants. Thank you for that,
Salamat.
dear viewer. Now, siguro for our
Salamat po.
last question. Uh, this one again siguro sa ating educational institutions. A question, do you recommend schools to have a program for teachers to help their psycho-emotional and mental health support during this challenging time?
Yes, like that PFA thing, that PFA that you mentioned earlier, the first aid mental health. I think that would be good. It's like the skills and the perspective, no? Kasi people are afraid, teachers, managers are afraid to handle a situation like this, right? So I think you're not expected to be counselors and psychologists. You're only expected to engage, okay? And then you create a space of trust, and then handhold, and move and refer the person to the professionals who can better intervene and more able to sustain, or how would I put that, no? Be more with the person.
Okay, thank you for that answer, Doc Josie. At this time, I would like, I'll stop your screen po, Doc Josie, ha?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So in behalf of the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association, we would like to thank you for your time, to thank and well, for your expertise and time you shared to us. Thank you very much, Doc Josie, for your expertise. So thank you very much. So
Thank you very
before we end, yes, let's give Doc Josie a virtual round of applause. Thank you so much. Talagang
virtual na.
yeah, virtual na. Talagang personally I have learned so much from your sharing and from this discussion. So as maybe a young counselor, well, talaga yung inputs mo, wow. Parang sabi ko, wow. Mapapawaw ka talaga.
Salamat.
Okay, now, yes, to our dear participants, since it's 12:15 already, the post-test and evaluation link will be provided po sa ating Facebook page. Again, the post-test and evaluation link will be provided po sa ating Facebook page. Then, it will be opened by 1 p.m. So you will have 1 to 2 p.m. So it's not 45 minutes yung grinant sa atin, but 1 hour po for the post-test and evaluation. Now, for your e-certificates, it will be emailed to your email addresses provided together with the handouts of the presentation of Doc Josie to be sent later. Okay, so please give us time, because we are dealing with thousands of e-certificates and of course participants. Okay, now this is the last part, or the last part of our phase 4, or for this month of August. Please stay tuned. We might again run other topics on September. So please give us time to deliberate sa board for the September topics. Okay? So if you have again concerns with your certificates, please email po the PGCA certificate at gmail.com. Okay? So it's nice to see you again. I hope our webinars will continue for educating, for the education of everyone. Yes, so nandito pala yung ating president, Dr. Adelaida Hines. So thank you very much, Doc Josie. Yes, ating din pong PRB. And before that, before ko pala na makalimutan, we would like to thank ang ating PGCA, yung Secretariat team. Yes, the Secretariat team headed by Sir Dan Talusan, ang ating Secretary, Ma'am MC Garcia, the Assistant Secretary. Then yung ating staff sa PGCA, Mr. Vince Sarcon and Miss Juvian De Leon. Then we have our volunteer, Miss Justine Gual. And of course, yung nagde-design ng ating posters, the FEU peers. And of course, we would like to thank yung ating FEU, yung TAMS guidance team. They are the one who are sending our certificates. And of course, we would like to thank our local chapters, our other national counseling organizations, and of course, the POP, or the Peer Organization of the Philippines. So maraming salamat po. Hope to see you again. If you have stories about counselors, if you have concerns when it comes to our advocacy, please email pgca.socmet@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, follow our social media accounts sa Facebook, PGCA Official, Twitter at Official PGCA, and YouTube channel PGCA Philippine Counselor. So, one big fight for counselors. Thank you very much and good